Еще раз рада всех приветствовать. В продолжении нашей пленарной дискуссии мы организовали круглый стол, где спикерам хотим задать...
I'm happy to welcome you once again. We have decided to organize a roundtable. We'll listen to our speaker and we will be able to dwell on one of our topics in more detail, social impact in science and education and business, and to see how it works in practice. Good afternoon. Yes, we have our guest from India with us. It is Professor Satyajit Majumdar from Mumbai. He's a professor in a Center of Social Entrepreneurship. He will present today. He will speak about design of social effect, social impact. When the professor presents, you can select English or Russian, and there is also a presentation in Russian or in English, as you wish. Colleagues, I suggest making our roundtable in this format. If you don't mind, we don't have much time. Some people are here in person, some people cannot really control their time properly. So we did not actually set the order for presentations in advance. It's up to you if you don't mind. I mean, we would like to start with a person who has been in this area for a long time, has many publications, and we hope that your presentation will help us understand the problem that we have set for ourselves. Actually, I'm giving the floor to Mr. Vladimir now. He will be the first to present. You know, when I was preparing the presentation, I answered the questions. I actually looked at the agenda proposed for the session. And if you did prepare, I guess you read it as well. And I had a feeling of resistance towards that agenda, because there are a lot of problematic things stipulated there. And actually, I wanted to share my vision of landscape that we have in Russia. I mean, evaluation of the of this profession, because evaluation of projects, assessment of projects, you know, people who do it, they work in a certain area. Those people have their own achievements, their own background, their own crisis. It is an area which develops very actively, very dynamically. And I would like to say a couple of words about that as well. It's important. We need to discuss that. If you know about all of it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it will be boring for you, but I will be very brief. What would I like to speak about? I would say a couple of words about history of development of assessment as professional activity, because history of development of an area, it also gives you understanding of what this evaluation is. And you know which methods to use to conduct it. This question can be answered if we look at history. That's important. Then, project as an object of evaluation or estimation or assessment. It is a very important source of methods, approaches to assessment, understanding of this professional area. Then, grounds for conducting assessment. Well, it is an area of professional activity. Now, why does that need actually arise? And briefly about a couple of words about approaches. Speaking of assessment in social sphere, well, it's not just this event, it's something long-term. It is a history of professionalization of assessment. People have been involved in different assessments since a long time ago, especially in the field of education. There are a lot of great names, people who invented tests or in education and so on. Speaking of assessment of programs and projects, there is consensus that the source of it was a launch of artificial satellite of the Earth by the Soviet Union. And as we were several months ahead of the others, the situation in the USA that was, it was called a satellite shock. It was a combination of fear, surprise, a lot of worry. Maybe you heard that story when Americans were digging a refuge camp or something. It happened before that, because it wasn't just launch of satellite, of artificial satellite. Of course, it meant taking some weapons in space. the direction of the government was interesting. They started to think about that. It was clear that financial capabilities were not comparable. The Soviet Union had just ended a destructive war, and so on. And a conclusion was made at the level of the government that something is wrong with the education system in technical disciplines, in sciences, in engineering. And a year after, an initiative was accepted to develop education. An initiative at the level of government. One of the projects was Search for Talented People, STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics. And the idea behind it was the following. Huge money was invested in education system. The aim was to give the possibility to teachers, to schools, to carry out experiments and to look for the best means of education. Why is it called? Why is it so important? Because the law stipulated the obligation to assess the initiatives and the projects that were done with the money of federal projects at the level of states, separate schools as well, individual schools. So the task was set to assess it. So it is considered that professionalization of assessment started with that initiative of the government. Well, speaking of history, and in order to understand what assessment is as a professional area of activity, assessment of projects and programs, I mean, because actually there are a lot of types of assessment. I spoke about that at the plenary session. For me, assessment of politics is not the same thing as assessment of programs. And when we speak about professionalization of assessment of social programs, we must say that by that time, experience had been accumulated of, project management was becoming a very important area, a very important approach, very important methodology to manage programs as a whole. And speaking of the USA, of course, it is the Manhattan Project. It is also experience of space programs. We take other countries as well, not only the USA. So, yes, 50s, 80s, project approach was implemented in all spheres of economics. And from science and technical programs, it actually moved to social sphere, and approaches started to be used there, which were also of a project nature. So there were different legislation requirements, departments in different authorities, education, like educational programs, and so on. And there was the first crisis that happened. It's difficult to speak about that here, but actually that was the thing, because when the question was asked, who is to assess all of it, who was addressed, who was supposed to assess programs in social sphere, the government set that order. Of course, they were researchers, they were universities, it was the university environment. And the crisis was about the following. 1958, 1960, it was a social program of fight against poverty and so on. And huge reports were obtained that researchers did. And nobody needed that. Nobody read them. And political decisions that were taken, they were taken on different bases. And the second part, it's the most important. I won't speak about that in detail. Michael Patton, why is he a real guru? Because he published an article and he formulated a term, assessment oriented for usage.
Actually, he was not the only one. There was a group. They were saying that this evaluation is an area of practice, and the main purpose of an evaluation is assistance to make managerial decisions in projects and programs. And that was about overcoming the crisis, about professionalization. And speaking about today, actually, I already mentioned that in 3 countries it was decided that the assessment of state programs is absolutely necessary. There's a huge methodological basis, specific assessment for this sphere of education and that sphere of education. And actually, we can see specialization. And it's important that in the 90s, and now I'm speaking about Russia, in the 90s, this assessment was applied by non-profit organizations, corporate funds. So it means that the assessment was divided at the level of small projects and programs, non-federal ones. And what do we see now? You can see 2012 latest data, 158 professional associations, 135 national associations, 23 of them are regional or international. There are 110 countries, and such an association exists in Russia as well. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Too far. And in my opinion, the history of development of project management and social program assessment is different in Russia. If we take 58, 60, we see that the American book about program evaluation was translated, Program Evaluation Review Techniques. And actually, it was Kosygin who started all of that, the implementation of project approach and assessment in the practice and industry, and the leader was construction industry. So the problem was that there were lots of construction works that were to be done, not finished, and they tried to fulfill that. And when we speak about the assessment of social programs from 1968 till 1990, there were longitudinal studies in the sphere of education, educational reforms. We don't know much about that publicly, but speaking about assessment, actually 2 books were published. That was a monograph, the Institute of the USA and Canada. So this monograph was published in 1985. And secondly, there is a very important book by Donald Campbell. He is one of the founders of assessment. And psychologists are well aware of this book. It was published 2 or 3 times in Russia. And for the first time, they used this term, the evaluation of managed social change. So not program and project evaluation. So he was a really important person in the history of evaluation. And from 1995 till today, in my opinion, the evaluation of programs and projects as a discipline, there are trainings, there is work, and actually this is the sphere of the third sector. Probably I'm prejudiced, but I think that the development is all there. But when we say what exists in Russia, the organs of state authorities, we have the methodology for the evaluation of federal programs. We have our Chamber of Accounts. About 5 years ago, it introduced the notion of social audit. It started with Golikova, when for the first time she analyzed 117 programs that are financed by the government. And she said a strange thing. In some programs, the goals are not very clear. In some programs, it's not clear whether results were achieved or not, and many other things. And after that, we have web. If you visited the morning session, you know that they have social bond initiative, and there are also requirements to evaluation there. We have МГПУ, a competitor of this university. They have a master program, the evaluation in social sphere, and I am a teacher there. It's an honor for me, and my colleagues also are related to this work. And this is, I think that now this is the only college or program evaluation, and we have research institutes of the Ministry of Finance that promote evaluation of economic effects. And in business, well, if you know it, actually donors, well, business is a donor of social programs, and at some stage there was a need and desire to evaluate the investments that they conduct, and that is a very important engine for evaluation that is closely related not to the state but to the third sector, because non-profit organizations are executive of these projects and programs mostly. And the third sector, actually, I can say a lot of things about that. My colleagues and I have monthly club devoted to evaluation every second Thursday of a month. It is open. You are invited there. 33 sessions were conducted within 3 years. And there is Siberian Center for the Support of Public Initiatives. It received an educational license now, and in partnership with it, we developed a program for professional training in the sphere of evaluation. 144 hours, and state diploma is granted. Every year there are conferences. We have association of experts for the evaluation of projects and programs. It used to be about politics, about now policies, but now it's projects and programs. And in 2015, there was a first conference devoted to evaluation. And now I'd like to say a few words about professionalization. Indeed, a very important thing is an object of evaluation, social program or project. And we need to understand that sometimes in Russia, social project or program is not something that can be considered to be a project, because project is also about specific professional area of activities. There are standards there, specific sites, and they described here the essence of project management. And in this sense, well, sometimes if we refer to it as a program, but actually it is not a program. And that's important because it's important what we evaluate. It's the subject of our evaluation. And speaking about the goals of social projects and programs, the question is, what is a social project, in my opinion? And actually, that stems from the UN definition. Well, first of all, there are several basic things that can be different in real projects, but for example, development of specific features, qualities, and in this sense, training projects are social programs, specific skills, or for example, the quality of interactions between people. It's quite extensive, at the ground level, it can be different. The establishment of social institutions, I think that actually over the last 30 years in Russia, the institution of Institute for Adopters was established. It did not exist before. Thanks to joint efforts of many people and organizations, such an institution was established. A change of behavior of people and organizations and creating new conditions for life. For example, when a kindergarten is built, is it a social project or not? In my opinion, no. And for example, the development, Sergei Platonikov spoke about that, changing. So I guess that this is a program, what he was saying. And what else is important to remember? There are various formats for the description of projects, and this is an interesting story as well. For example, quite frequently we use a logical framework, but we need to understand that this instrument has an author. It was created in 1970, and it was created so that high-level officials would be able within 15 minutes to get familiarized and see what a big federal program is, not within an hour, 3 hours, but 15 minutes. And that is why this tool was devised. Logical framework, it has its limitations, it has its benefits. And speaking about the last one, the theory of change is a more complicated description. But what is most important in these descriptions? It's important that a description of a project is always about description of cause and effect between the actions and the results that we receive. And when I say that sometimes this is not a project, it's because in its description, it does not contain the chain of this cause and effect, and a management project really should have it. And what is important, I'm approaching the moment of evaluation. If it's a social project, there is this line, this is a format, actions, goals of the actions, objectives, goal of the project, strategic goal. But when we work with people, according to our experience, we see that we can be responsible for the actions that we fulfilled, the results of these actions. But if we speak about a project, about a goal that is about specific change, well, in this case, it's about human, and human is really complicated. And not always we can guarantee that a social project is always about a hypothesis. We always undertake to achieve something, but life and humans are more complicated, and in this sense, we need evaluation. So has the goal of the project been achieved, or strategic goal, the impact, if we were focused on solving some social problem? There are no such projects or programs that could solve a serious social problem. We always contribute to solving it, and in this sense, so I'm speaking about an impact, this contribution. The task is to understand what the impact was. And that is why, where is the source of evaluation? The source of evaluation is people that manage project or program or finance it, so they have a significant impact. And that's why probably the evaluation is not needed. It's clear, but probably there are some external requirements or internal need that make us ask the question if everything is right and where is it going to, do we fulfill our obligations, and so on and so forth. And in this sense, the main source of a project evaluation is the person that makes a managerial decision and people that make managerial decisions. And if something is unclear to them. They cannot decide whether they should continue this project or not, whether they should duplicate it or not, whether they're successful or not, finally. And in that case, there is a need in evaluation. And in this sense, evaluation is a practical activity. You can say a definition here. So when they ask, what is the result of this evaluation? The result of an evaluation is opinion about a project. Opinion. Well, indeed, it would be good if this opinion was based on specific analytical procedures, if it is substantiated. But actually, any manager of any social project or program evaluates it, even if they do not know these words, because every day or periodically they need to make decisions, and these decisions should be based on something. A very important aspect when we speak about methods. For me, it's important to ask the following question: what do we want to learn with this evaluation? And the key point in evaluation is the questions which we need to answer, not hypotheses about the project, but questions. And these are the questions that are important for the customer. You know, the main person in the evaluation process is the customer, not the person that makes things, but the customer, because evaluation is about helping them to make a substantiated decision how to conduct evaluation. It's useful. And Michael Patton, here you can see his definition. It is related to it. The evaluation of a program focused on practical use can be differentiated by the fact that it is conducted for specifically defined users with specific goals, and the goals are set by the customer. And I guess that this is the core difference from research study, because, you know, research is about implementing your personal interests using state money. I mean that a researcher should be able to set tasks for themselves, but in case of evaluation, it's different. And speaking about other types of evaluation, for example, if we speak about project management, there are always managerial objectives, decision making, and receiving new knowledge. And these are different types of evaluation, inspection, audit, or study. This is also a type of study, but type of evaluation, but evaluation and monitoring are used for decision making. And, you know, this is the only right method. Quite frequently, we hear it in Russia. Where is the best method of evaluation? What is the only one appropriate method of evaluation? First of all, there are three approaches, actually: expert, indicator, and empiric. And what differentiates them? Expert evaluation is providing judgment based on the knowledge that the experts have, and roughly speaking, we trust the judgment about a project of an expert. And, you know, I always tremble when I hear these words, objective expert evaluation. Expert evaluation is subjective by definition, and the main thing is trust to an expert. And the matter of procedures that I use, Sergei Platonikov spoke about the methodology used in this university, Shien, I think the name of the teacher, you know. I've heard about it a long time ago. Expert evaluation, indeed, it includes specific procedures. So we say that these are the methods, and it is not really expert evaluation because you need to conduct a mini study there, but we select people, we trust them, we trust their evaluation, and what is it aimed at? To change something inside the institution. Sure. That's a good example. And speaking about the evaluation of impact, you know, in our practice, there was an order, Potanin Fund. They have a big museum program, and they decided to evaluate the impact of their museum program for 13 years of their existence, and they had 4 months. And what was offered to him? So that this impact, it was offered to him that this impact should be described by people that are experts in museum sphere. So we found 150 experts. We asked them, which changes have you seen in museum sphere over this time? And so they all agreed about these changes. And after that, we asked these experts to agree what was the contribution of Pantanin Fund. And they gave their judgments. And in our opinion, the expert evaluation is the evaluation of impact, indicator evaluation. This is judgment based on a limited number of indicators. And now this approach is used in state programs. But when we speak about the evaluation of policy, of course, at the level of big country, big scales, the numbers are significant. But there are limitations. Campbell was the first one to formulate it, the law of Campbell. It sounds as follows. The more we are guided by indicators in managed impact, the less we can manage it. This is Campbell's paradox, because he was the first person to speak about manipulation of numbers. There is a story of Thatcher, and one economist from the World Bank, Thatcher, criticized they were criticizing Thatcher for this stringent indicators of social reforms. It was her goal. And actually, well, yes, when we start managing using indicators, we are mostly interested not in change management, but the indicators themselves. That is manipulation. And finally, empirical evaluation. That is what makes us closer to research, but it is not research. That is a judgment based on systematically collected empirical data. So to answer the question of this task, we need to conduct a study. And the similarity with research is that the same methods are used: questionnaires, interviews, observation, and studying documentation. There are no other methods. Others are modifications, but that is not about gaining new knowledge, but about answering a question. And for me, indicator evaluation is a part of empirical evaluation. We collect quantitative data, we monitor the project, we get data about the quantity, we measure change that happened to children, to participants of the project, and after that, based on that, we make a judgment. I think so. And here you can see the stages of empirical evaluation. It is nothing special, actually, but I refer to it as a golden standard of evaluation. Roughly speaking, we need to fulfill the tasks of every stage, and in that case, we can conduct the evaluation. And if it is not fulfilled, then the evaluation will not take place. For example, we need to learn from the customer what they want to get and formulate these questions. And if there are no such questions, then well, I had an interesting case when I was present at a conference in the Higher School of Economy, and they showed the first variant of university rating. If you work in a university, you know about that. And there were researchers that presented the idea, the methods, and there was a representative from the Ministry of Science or the Ministry of Education. I don't remember it now. And they spoke about that. They said, we have a good methodology. They said, yes, that's a good methodology. And this person stands up and says, well, actually, it's nonsense. We're going to reject orders because they asked why. University rating, it's good. She says, no, it's nonsense. And for me, it was an example that there was a task to build methodology for evaluation. And after that, I asked the researchers, are you in touch with this woman? She said, no, the prorector was in touch with her, and they just told us to do that. So we did it. And this is the example. The customer said that this is nonsense, although from the standpoint of research, that was a really interesting instrument. And 79 types of evaluation in the 4th edition. If you're interested in it, there is a link for the presentation. This is my colleague, my partner, Michael Quinn. 79 types of evaluation, and I guess that in the latest edition, there are even more than them. And speaking about professional position, American Association of Evaluation is the largest one in the world, and it is open. It includes 9,000 people. Half of them are representatives of other.
Самый крупный, так сложилось. И есть Европейское общество оценки. Ну вот они выступают за эффективность.
There is European Society of Efficiency as well. They are saying that golden standard it is when method corresponds to the task. There are many issues in assessment of projects, and thus there is variety of methods of assessment and evaluation. Thank you very much. That's it. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask them. What about representatives of our country? Are they part of that association? and that golden standard. Alexei Kuzmin is member of the American Association. Unfortunately, now there are problems with paying membership fees. 2 years ago, actually, he was member of the board of the association, and his membership was prolonged for 2 years. So we can have some impact, right? Yes. It's now the third year. You know, membership in an association is the possibility to get, latest editions, and he does obtain all of that. As for the European one, no. Thank you for the message. I have a question. I heard a very important thing from what you said. There is assessment and assessment. What do I mean? There is intermediate assessment of end results. It can be personal level, institutional level, technological level. And there are changes in processes themselves. And if we speak about social impact, it is very important to capture those changes in the processes. I'm sorry for such a long and complicated question, but it's very important for me to have that component related to processes and how it relates to results into product. I think that starting such social processes, it's not, a question of assessment of projects and programs. Absolutely. It is either area of research or it is area of assessment of policies when we have impact and so on. But speaking of assessment of projects and programs, well, in our company, we use this research actively, very actively. Because, of course, it gives its own outlook on things. There are projects and programs where people have impact on adolescence, and modern perception of what adolescence is, like periods of it, because I am a psychologist by my first degree, pedagogue and psychologist, and it's very important, and there are a lot of developments in that. There are new theories of adolescence, and it's very important to, synchronize with that. But assessment, it's not about that. Users of research, and we are users of research and development, but I don't think that we should study something in an assessment. Speaking of social projects, it can always be like study of small groups. Any social project, it's always a finite number of recipients. I don't know, the project of development of inclusive schools, non-commercial organizations that try to promote inclusive education. But what is it in Russia scale? They have 5 regions, and each region has 3 basic schools. Of course, they keep track of what is happening around. They are interested in that, of course. I don't know whether I have answered your question. Yes. Well, let's leave it there. Assessment of results and products. I guess, yes, you did provide an answer. But we should not forget about processes. Yes, of course, there are different things. It's important in terms of managing development. Let's just note it down. Yes, and it's important for development of projects, of course. Colleagues, thank you very much. I have another small question, if I may. Yes, it's time for the next presentation. Ask your question, and then we'll get to the next presentation. Yes, on a picture, you had action, and then the goal of the action was showed. Does it mean that it reflects the real picture of what is happening? Goals appear after actions. No, speaking about how a project is implemented, it is so. We make some actions by reaching a goal. As for the level of development, it happens in different ways. But formats of description are like that. We don't have others, by the way. Thank you very much. We are initiators of this discussion. We also have our questions. If speakers don't mind, maybe we will take some more questions afterwards, maybe offline. Now I would like to get to our speakers. A speaker from High School of Economics. And the first speaker, he was a practitioner with rich experience. And here we have scientific school. We actually view you as school experts who develop methodology. It is what was said in the first part. And Natalia, now I would like to give the floor to you. Yes, how much time do you have? You have 10 minutes. Okay, speaking of our scholarship activities, it is less related to assessment. Our practical activity is rather related to creating different models of assessment of projects and programs. And my role is that I'm the main editor of the journal Positive Changes, and I'm a leading expert of the Institute of Social and Economic Design in High School of Economics. All the materials are placed on the website journal.ru or something like that. It's in open access, and it is important to say to our English-speaking colleagues that everything is in Russian and in English. And the examples I will give today, they are described in publications, which I will refer to as well today. So they are available both in Russian and in English. And the edition which I have in front of me, there the first article is of our expert, Vice President of an organization in India. I guess colleagues will actually enjoy reading it. And Michael Papton actually made a publication for the journal of last year. So it's like united community we have. It's well organized and well represented. Today I would like to share our experience in developing one of the tools of evaluation that we created back in 2020. We had a unique possibility to do that. We got a present grant as a non-commercial organization, a grant to, we had like an annual sabbatical to study, to get immersed in that, to understand it, like to put your feet in water, to understand where we are now in assessment, what the status is, where we're moving, and what we can do for practice of evaluation to be developed, and not only to develop different approaches, methods, manuals, because there is a multitude of them. They're all placed on the website. We identified a problem. Well, basically, there is no lack of knowledge. There are whole educational programs on the one hand. You can even get a diploma. You can be a certified specialist in assessment. You can get access to description of almost any methods. There are very, detailed cost and benefit analysis, theories of changes, whatever. There is a lot of variety. It's crazy. And these practices, actually, it doesn't really help developing practice itself. And I guess somewhere we could have a look at it from a different angle. Not write a manual number 150 that could probably communicate you with new information. But, if it did not create much impact earlier, maybe it is the way that should not be considered. And an answer to that was development of a profile, which we called Unique and Universal Assessment Profile. Its particularity it is that it allows to create unique profile for each project. So the point of growth which we identified was that we thought that when an organization doesn't see itself in the space of all of this, when it reads on the 10th page of a manual, like, now let's read something which doesn't relate to anything at all, doesn't relate to the activity at all, when there are indicators that don't have importance for this particular project. For example, sustainable development goals, a very popular topic. It was mentioned today. So we tried to find indicators for specific projects there. We took a specific project. We really wanted to develop a model of its assessment. We went to IRIS Plus. We spent a lot of time there. And it turned out that the indicators that we found there, they are very common. They're too general. Of course, you can show them to an investor, use them for something else, show that we are working for this sustainable development goal. But if we speak about practice-oriented usage, well, we don't really go towards an organization getting some important result for itself. in terms of description of his activity. So we had an idea of creating this profile. The initial point was a publication that only exists in English for the moment, but it will be translated at some point. The book is called, it's done by Nur Ibrahim, Changes in a Complex World, something like that. And he was saying in that book that we need to create a variety of methods to understand activities of different non-commercial organizations. We'll assess ideas. So the more specific it is, the more informative the approach we'll be using will be. He suggested 2 scales. We use them as well. A cause and effect and possibility to measure results based on levels of impact. But it turned out that it wasn't sufficient. 2 criteria would not be sufficient for an organization to be able to relate itself to different approaches in assessment and develop a model of assessment as a result for their unique specific project, which is implemented at a certain time point with certain target audience and so on. So we expanded that list. We now have 13 criteria. We thought for a long time how to present them so that an organization could consider itself, in the light of all these criteria. And a 2D organization doesn't, 2D arrangement doesn't help here because we have 13 criteria. You can't look at it in its full volume. So we have like a structure made of petals. So briefly, we have 13 criteria. The criteria that can be used for self-assessment and also in external assessment by an expert. They can also be used there. So depending on characteristics of a project, we have unique assessment profile for this organization. We provide universal criteria, but profile is unique, where components are reflected which are important for this particular organization. And as we had quite general, we did not have a focus group. For example, a non-commercial organization that solves some childhood projects. Well, our task was to provide something more universal. And our criteria are thus more universal as well. And maybe they require, well, they can be even more specified for specific areas. That is the attempt we made in our next project. I won't speak about groups or skills now. On the one hand, they are online tools. It is an online tool. It is presented on website impact something, and all the 13 scales, they united into 3 clusters. The description of clusters is given here, though it is in Russian. For example, external context and so on. By the way, identifying clusters, it was an idea of a colleague. We discussed it with Vladimir, the person who inspired us to have this multidimensional thing. He suggested dividing the scales into clusters. I guess that the experience of using this tool is interesting. It is the project when we develop model of impact model for Norilsk Foundation. Norilsk Foundation, it is the financing organization. They have projects. It is based on competition, and they get financing based on that. The task is to elaborate a model that would fit all the organizations that make an application. What do we have here? Unlike the first option, we have limited audience here. They are projects which are implemented on one territory. So we keep in mind that we have municipal statistics that help us. We can actually include it for projects that do have impact, on changes in municipal statistics. It's not that difficult. Many projects and their results could be described even at the level of changes in local statistics. In this model, one of the elements, and there are 2 of them, 2 components. One of them was a universal assessment profile. that we developed. On the one hand, yes, it is one territory. On the other hand, projects are characterized as, well, usually they relate to social sphere. So we put some indicators there that relate to this area. Plus, there were values that were important to reflect for foundation. For example, financial sustainability of project results, an increase of share of their own contribution in the next project. Now, producing it for secondary audience, because they're social and cultural projects, there are a lot of educational ones. And we understand that for some projects, it will be the audience that does not take an direct part in events. For example, an expensive expert has been brought, 10 people were trained. And we could just stop, our work there, what happens afterwards. And then what happens? Those 10 people, they train experts afterwards. And it's like the second wave of experts. It's our secondary audience. It's very important for us to take that into account as well, based on characteristics of the projects that are supported, and on the other hand, on foundation values. These 7 criteria were elaborated, plus a group of criteria that we called hygiene of assessment. We think that any project should include that. It is the presence of proof system, evidence-based, and understanding of how the project will be implemented. You can read about those criteria in the materials in the latest edition on the website. There is an article which has the same name with description of assessment models for no-risk foundation projects. What else should be mentioned? I would like to give you an example how detailed description of each criterion is. For example, development and retention of personnel potential in regions. Why do we have this criterion? Because it is part of top 3 region problems. And it's important for us that if a project has a mechanism that promotes changes in this indicator, for example, we create unique jobs, we retain experts that could not, work afterwards, before that, but we do create such opportunities, then it is important to monitor all of it. And maybe then we can envisage it as a practice that can be used in other projects as well. Now, as for secondary audience, I haven't fully described it. Well, for them, there are some indicators as well. For example, coverage, cost of training, dynamics, and so on. There are quite detailed descriptions. And there is a description for each criterion, how the criterion can be assessed, which data should be collected, how they should be analyzed. And the second component, well, I won't speak about that in detail. It's assessment by unique assessment profile, and it is complemented by a system of indicators. On the one hand, they are elaborated based on different areas of the competition. On the other hand, well, this indicator should be elaborated by the project itself. If it doesn't see the relevant indicators among the indicators which are provided externally. And there is also integral model. It is when all indicators of all projects are put together in one card to look at how it all works together, what has been achieved. And there is also a description of criteria for integral model. And territorial agreement, the last criterion I would like to mention. It was mentioned today, index of life quality. It is one of the sources of data. Here there is a focus on, well, projects that are oriented towards solving of the most relevant problems for the region. Such projects are also there. They are also in a separate basket, let's say.
Two publications that you can see on the slide describe this method in details. And I would like to make a small comment here. In this case, the profile is not something that characterizes the project as good or bad, not at all. So if a project is not aimed at solving HR problems, or I don't know, it does not have secondary audience, it just means that this project is different. But it's important for us that there are specific projects devoted to these issues, and we need to record them, analyze them, so that the fund will look at the changes and change the relevant agenda and values. But this is not an instrument to say whether a project is good or bad. Of course not. This is just an opportunity to consider, to look at yourself surrounded by mirrors. So we have a second component for that. And it was a bit longer than 10 minutes. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have questions? Can I ask a question? Is it possible to consider this evaluation for human resource potential as a level and system evaluation, in the sense that, for example, if people achieved the second level, they need to move to level number 3, not 4 or 5. That is a good question. For the first group, the first 7 criteria of the profile, for them, there is no recommendation that they need to strengthen this component. No, it just states that this is a project about the change of situation for this criterion. In that case, there is a system how to record it. I mean, that we just provide assistance, how to evaluate your impact based on this criterion. And for the second group of criteria, hygiene factors, yes, in this case, automatically the projects that are marked as 1, 2, or 3, anyway, we provide recommendations that there are specific measures for strengthening these characteristics in the project. Thanks a lot. I have a question. Natalia Yevgenievna, I opened your presentation, and we actually were looking at grant applications, and we looked at the indicator of social impact. Indeed, we have gathered almost all experts that are somehow involved in evaluation. We analyzed about 8,000 grant applications of Presidential Grant Fund to understand how they describe the social impact. And as we understood, the executives are not specified in the very beginning. You know, this question is interesting. I mean, that when you are not asked, well, yes, if actually the form of application is not about the description of social impact, you cannot even specify it anywhere. If you submitted an application for a grant to the Presidential Grant Fund, you know, the number of signs is limited, and even the evidence-based description of your technology is provided as a separate file because there is not much space there. And we also conducted an interview with grant-given funds, Presidential Grant Fund and regional funds, and asked them what do they think about this component of social impact and whether it can be integrated in their project application forms. And besides, some regional funds already have this practice. For example, there is a fund in Chernihiv Way to Home, and in their case, the grant application form includes the theory of change, so you need to describe the levels of social impact there. And speaking about the fund of presidential grants, taking into account the volume of organizations that are applicants, or we're saying that these can be organizations of 1 person or 1,000 people. This should be a very universal form, and that's why now they just have what they have. Yes, somehow we need to provide evidence of the practice that we recommend, that we will use within our project. And speaking about the results, we can describe long-term change, and we can use the language of social impact, the characteristics of social impact that is created or will be created, that is achieved within the project or after it. Thanks a lot. And Vladimir Leonidovich Liner, we'll also continue speaking about the theory of positive change, student projects for the strategy of the development of the country. Hello, distinguished colleagues. This is a local story. So on the one hand, Vladimir already spoke about the theory of change, and on the other hand, Natalia told you about the work of our team, how it approached the instruments that I would like to share with you. And now we can see this instrument, the theory of positive change, that I'm going to show you now. This is a tool of a simple entry to start understanding social projects. And it is based on logical change, the theory of change, and understanding various additional practice, risks, and assumptions, and evidence. So Natalia already spoke about this journal. We can also skip this information because we frequently write about that, and we always work with lots of projects, applications. And even now, this week, one big competition was over where we were evaluating applications, and there are 2 more competitions where we need to evaluate lots of applications till the end of the month based on our approach and criteria. I would like to skip this as well because Vladimir spoke about that, but there is a small detail here. In the theory of change, the theory of change is getting more and more to be similar to a leading approach to the formation of projects, because in this manner, projects are easier to be evaluated. And in 2020, the recommendations about the use of theory of change for strategic audit and strategic planning in Russia was published. And within this approach, for one big federal structure, we are developing strategy 2030. And on the other hand, indeed, we already have evidence standards where the theory of change is also recommended. And from this standpoint, in the project that we conducted together with the High School of Economics, supported by Presidential Grant Fund, in this project we saw that there are lots of guidelines, and we also translated the book Theory of Change within 10 steps. We were trying to find the approach that would be very simple and understandable for any student of any university, so that they would be able to start this project learning. Besides service learning, also came to universities now. And from this standpoint, we thought how we can represent the approach of the theory of change as simple as possible. Oh, it's really simple. Well, yes, now you can see that it's really simple. On the one hand, we have the tree of problems, the target audience of the problem, the reason of the problem. On the other hand, we have the map of positive change, and we are speaking about that for the whole day-to-day activities, specific results, indicators, social impact, and apart from indicators, we have justification here and social impact, indicators and justification. Theoretically, it looks like that, and we tried to recently we launched a test version of a web service where any person, and we also do this experiment on students, and every person can launch and describe their project within the logic of the theory of change. And it turns out that this is a big and complicated task when we need not only to say, for example, I would like to conduct a workshop, and what will change? So someone will learn about that, but we want to describe this story and show that apart from the audience, problems, reasons of the problems and events, step 6, 7, and 8, what will change at the level of relationship behaviors with the target audience, what will change in the life of this target audience after that, and what will change in the society thanks to the changes in this target audience. And the attempt to learn how to look over the horizon of the future is very useful in our opinion. And in this case, this is an open instrument. It's free, you can use it. Here it is, QR code. So it's possible to leave QR code here. And there is an important detail mentioned by Vladimir and Natalia. It is important to be always focused on evidence and substantiation. And at every step, we propose the author of this project description to have a checklist of what I have really done from the standpoint of substantiation and evidence base. We refer to it as an index of substantiation and evidence base, where we hint. For example, target audience was described. It's important to check statistics. Has it been collected? What about cabinet study? What about expert questionnaire and our own empirical study? If some of these activities have been done, a person puts a tick, and thus when a project is prepared, when a project is described, we also have an index that is calculated inside. If the as the status of substantiation and evidence base, and you can see that in every step the content of these checklists is different, and they have diagnostics and recommendation nature.
Мы запустили этот сервис где-то месяца 2 назад.
We launched this service about 2 months ago. Now we have approximately 100 various projects that are described and checked themselves in this manner. And we also use this instrument to externalize for every customer or author of a project what is actually meant, or where are the gaps in the logic, or what has been remained unthought of, why the project cannot become strong, substantiated, stable, receive finance and investment, and so on. So this is a multi-profile instrument, and we have already accumulated some number of additional hypotheses that should be improved. But today it seems that this is a useful story, at least for every grant competition or educational course for projects. And it is also important that when so you can see it here actually in the bottom, how this map is built, and you can see connections, interconnections. Well, it's quite busy because the content is not important now, but it's important that this scheme can be printed. So it's possible to see the logic. It's not like I will do that and it will be better for someone, or the world will become better. You know, it is frequently seen not only in student applications, but also in grant applications. But here we can see the real logic. And in this map, indeed, it's possible to design a model of evaluation in a more clear manner. So I guess that this is the main story, and you can see details in this journal. Here is the QR code. If you have not seen our journal, you can take a picture of it and see it. So that's it for me now, because I think that otherwise we will not be in line with our agenda. But only like to add that actually the instrument referred to by Vladimir and this journal actually are side products of our project of 2020, because we wouldn't have had developed it if we had a good Russian guidelines. And the journal is quite similar to it. It's important that this is something that grew as a response to a query. And I can also say that when we were faced with the task to evaluate projects from the standpoint of social impact, and we started working in this area, we can say that this journal, and you are chief editor of it, we read it thoroughly, and now we would like to point out that the presentation that we had in the morning referred to a serious issue. There was lots of information, and one of the key problems was that there is no index of social impact, and your presentation answers this question to an extent. The index of evidence base and substantiation, and I can confirm that when we were developing and when we were looking at the results, that covered this issue, that solved these problems. It's important for us. Thanks a lot, colleagues. If possible, I'd like to make a comment. Thanks a lot for your presentation. The comment is as follows. The question is as follows. It's quite frank. Look here. So why do we have it? Positive change accumulate. And when there are lots of them, quantity becomes quality. Can we understand it in this manner? Or development is not an integral or a sum of positive change, because positive change can accumulate, but development may not occur. That's about the process, because development is related to structural complication or principal transition. It's not about the improvement of something old. It's not about you, because, for example, an old type of lamp can be improved eternally, but if we don't change the principle, it will be no good. Could you please refer to your position? Well, as I understood, there are two aspects here. First of all, so why do we have positive change? Because we have positive change journal, but actually it is mostly about the fact that the impact does not suppose that there is something appropriate, positive, constructive. It's about the evaluation of impact. It can be both positive and negative. And in this manner, we show that we're interested in the practices that provide for constructive and positive impact. And that is why we use the word positive. Not just change, but positive change. And speaking about this project, factor of positive change, quite similar on the one hand. And on the other hand, speaking about impact investments that are most frequently the customer of evaluation, most frequently we see that as a rule this is an innovation, and as a rule in innovation there is a hypothesis that it's not through an accumulation, but it's possible to see some rapid transitions to a different level that is not visible now. So it's invisible for us. I mean that we bet on detection of innovative components, and we look at it as insight, as discovery, and quite frequently it happens that we, for example, in the practice of funds, it's possible to evaluate events, the coverage of this event, the satisfaction following the results of the event, and quite a lot of grant competitions are based on it. But when we look for innovations, we see that, for example, there is a way to home fund of Severstal or fund towards change that it's in the sphere of childhood as well, and they completely change the structure of an application. And for us, an application is an application, but it is written within the template of a theory of change. And when, as experts, we read this application, it's much easier for us to make a judgment, because this is a different story. Well, it should be separate, I think, from innovations, and social delta are calculated differently. The social deltas are calculated differently because, for example, we have a conviction that, for example, we raise this subject of social entrepreneurship, and still experts, even a small group of experts, 20 or 30 people that are engaged in social entrepreneurship for 20 years, they know each other for 20 years, but still they do not have a common understanding of what social entrepreneurship is. And our stance, and we are part of this circle, our stance is that a key criterion of social entrepreneurship is the understanding, evaluation, and reports about social impact. And in that case, the understanding of social becomes different. And in that case, part of business is social, and some social organizations are not social, actually, because if we look at it through the lens of social impact and effects and formation of public benefit, in that case, the paradigm of evaluation is different.
Межсекторных вещей.
Even when we speak about big intersectoral things in different areas of development. Thank you very much. Actually, it's great that you have so many questions. Now, I would like to ask you, Katerina and Elena, to let our foreign guest speak in front of you, because there is a time difference. He needs to run. And let's have, let's turn on presentation in Russian, if it is possible. Yes, colleagues, let me introduce the presentation of professor from India, Satyajit Majumdar. Is going to speak about desire of impact as part of social enterprises. We have two presentations, one in Russian, one in English. We'll try to launch one in Russian in the audience for you to be able to read it in Russian, but otherwise it will be also shown in English.
Thank you for the invite, and I feel happy to be here online and make my presentation on design for impact. This presentation is almost in continuation with the earlier presentation, where we have been discussing about theory of change. So if I take one step backward and think, how do I design the enterprise for creating impact? So, and it's also a strategic design proposition which I'm going to present. So before that, as the previous speaker has correctly pointed out, that there is no universal definition of social enterprise, and we always grapple with the idea that what could be social enterprise in one context may not be the social enterprise in other. So for the common understanding, I'm just submitting this terminology, a kind of dictionary for understanding the concepts. So if I use the word social entrepreneur, I'm referring to a person who is aspiring to create change, who is aspiring to create an impact. And he has ability, he has empathy, he or she both, of course. Then the social entrepreneurship, in my view, is a process, is a method of solving problem, societal problem. And hence, network resources becomes very important, which we call it social capital. And the entity, the organization which is created to solve this problem, we can label it as a social enterprise or social venture, which will have a business model, revenue, income, financial management, practices of supply chain, etc. And of course, what is important for me here is to understand that social enterprises are created to solve societal problem for a particular stakeholder, whom I call as primary stakeholder. And it's very important to sort of submit here, particularly underdeveloped countries and developing countries, that dignity of engagement with the social enterprise is something which is very fundamental to create a story of enterprise. So if I move forward, I would submit when we talk about designing for social impact, it works at the crossroad of complexity. And we can have more complex than what I'm showing on the screen. The technology, policy and regulations, market, the credit and investment, financial management, supply chain, geopolitical environment, and societal and cultural norms and behavior. There could be more than this. So what I'm submitting, social enterprises actually work in a very complex situation, and that's probably answers the question that why there is no universal definition of social entrepreneurship. So focus for this session is how we can design how we can strategically design for impact. Because impact, in my view, as earlier speakers were also talking about, is a process of creating something which is desirable, process of creating something which is change through education process. So what I'm submitting here, it has to be strategically designed. So if I look back, what are the roles social entrepreneurs play? I would, and this is a continuum. The first role social entrepreneur play is an entrepreneurial role. The second role is managerial role. And the third role is strategist or leadership role. So what I'm referring here, how social entrepreneur play a strategist or leadership role. And that's where the design for impact comes in for the discussion. So just for the purpose of common understanding about what do social entrepreneurs do and what social enterprises contribute to, I think they provide new hope, they provide new solution for creating a lasting impact. So when we talk about impact, it means That's a societal change, and the change will stay for a very long time. It's not a temporary change. So that's the reason social enterprises and impact are kind of inseparable element of the same problem-solving space. So basically, this sustainability can be seen from three dimensions: social dimension, economic dimension, environmental dimension, and all these dimensions are contributing to the change, which is created for the primary stakeholder, the people whom we target this. So I'll just give an example. Here is a young social entrepreneur from the northern part of India called Mohit Verma. Mohit has been a student of my university, and we have allowed him to pursue his career as social entrepreneur. So what he does, very simple. He has instituted an organization called Threadcraft India. Threadcraft India works with poor and marginalized women in the northern part of India, and he engages with these women who are skilled enough, who are trained enough to work something called a fine embroidery work, which is also popular in countries like Russia. So this embroidery pattern is called as chikankari. And these artisans, this poor woman, they engage in this kind of embroidery work, which is created to design apparels, the designer products and designer articles for men and women. So he started with 25 women embroiders coming from marginalized groups and poor families. And he also identified one woman lead. So this embroider, they are given job to practice embroidery work and try to create something which is marketable as apparel, as dress for men and women, and these are fashion products. These are fashion dress. So if I place Mohit in the value chain, Mohit actually works with the women who are working with embroidery work. So social enterprise, so my first submission here, social enterprise has to choose the space in which they would like to work. So Mohit chose to work in embroidery. So his impact has to be articulated. Impact has to be measured at the space of embroidery, not beyond or not before. Though the activities before and after are equally critical, but nevertheless, when we measure the impact of a social enterprise called Threadcraft India, we'll have to look at it from the embroidery value addition of the apparel. And so that's precisely the space he does. So if I put something in a model format, I would say social entrepreneurs, in our case, it's Mohit Verma, creates and social enterprise model where the social entrepreneurs create a value which is converging. That means social and environmental and business and values are created together. Economic and social benefits are created together. So it's not either or. Social enterprises are not only solving societal problems, but they're also looking at economic sustainability and environmental sustainability. So if we talk about what is strategic approach for impact design, so I'm going back to some fundamental positions that strategy is about creating a unique value proposition, and entrepreneurs create value proposition while seeking an opportunity, and they innovate the solution. Few minutes ago, we have been discussing about innovation. So innovation is built up in finding the right solution in the problem, and the solution in this case, in Mohit's case, is actually the women embroiders are marginalized and they're not getting good price from the market. So he intervenes in the process and the products are sold in the market at profitable rates. And these women get paid more than the minimum payments. So strategy planning and implementation is the managerial process which Mohit also engages with. So what is the strategic decision in the whole process? Strategic decision for creating impact is basically creating an option, taking a position to seek an option. In this case, Mohit takes an option to create a designer product, to create a product which will be sold at a reasonably high price by the people who are looking for fashion products, okay, who want to wear good dresses. And for them, he's creating a valuable product through which the women embroiders, the women artisans are paid higher wages. So basically, when we talk about decision making by the embroiders or by Mohit, in this case, Mohit, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs make a choice that what they will do and what they will not do. So what not to be done is equally important decision, which the social entrepreneurs look at. But nevertheless, the filtering this what to do and what not to do, impact is the core for this filtration. So basically, social enterprise work for some intent of positive change, and intent guides the strategic agenda by which decisions are taken, the processes are developed, and they kind of fill up the gap of the whole value chain through which people get dignified returns, they get more money, they get dignified life, they get good health and good support systems. So strategic impact can be seen from two sides. So far as social enterprises are concerned, we can look at them from the demand side, that is the market and the product side, and supply side, that means artisan, value chain, technology, etc. So, or sometimes actually social enterprise work on both the end. But in our case, in Chicken Curry case, that is Threadcraft India, Mohit decides to work on the supply side because he's not, he's connecting the products directly to a bulk buyer who is also exporting to the market. So he's not solving demand side problem, he's solving supply side problem. So when we talk about demand and supply, basically we are referring two things. One is the feasibility which is seen from the demand side, and the capability which is seen from the supply side. Capability is actually social enterprise capability, and the feasibility is the market feasibility. Social entrepreneurs actually kind of find out a way to manage both of them together by marrying them together. So when we talk about capability, it's the capability of the social entrepreneurs team, the founding team, the primary stakeholder, the women who are performing embroidery work, the fine thread work, and is a social enterprise as an organization, which is referred as a capability building organization. So while we talk about capability, resources are also important. Resources need to be strategically managed. Resources sometimes easily available. I'm aware because I regularly visit the Russian Federation. I go to Omsk, Siberia. I've seen several social enterprises where resources are also kind of moderated by the local administration, sometimes by the government, to provide last mile delivery of health services, creche services, etc. So this is the way to manage resources. Sometimes resources are available from multiple stakeholders. Sometimes resources have to be procured. It has to be purchased. So there is a question of investment and funding by the social enterprise. So management of resources is something which is very critical. And this is a strategic dimension which need to be seen, that for creating a certain kind of impact, what kind of resources are needed and how the resource and impact can be kind of aligned to each other. So if I put a simple framework for discussion, what stays in the middle is the technology, the know-how. Technology does not mean only the sophisticated gadget. Technology means the knowledge, the know-how. The know-how resides with the people, with the community, with the society, with the companies, okay? And something which is important when we sort of use this capability for getting a financial return is the market, and we design the operation management supply chain to get the right kind of financial result. So this is actually an equilateral triangle. This is a triangle which talks the whole framework in one go, and all the four elements together has to be matched throughout the life cycle of the social enterprise. And on the left side of the screen, I'm talking about market feasibility, technology feasibility, operation feasibility, financial capability, feasibility. And on the right side, I'm talking about market feasibility, technology capability, operation capability, and also financial capability. So this is precisely the whole sort of framework which we can look at for designing the impact. So it is important that social entrepreneurs, while they think even our education initiatives, our training, our vocational training, our skill training, I think it's important that the social entrepreneurs engage with the right kind of people for whom they want to create impact. I call them as primary stakeholder, and involve with them to identify the gaps in the service delivery, and then manage the resources to kind of develop a model which will fill up the problem space and try to create a sustainable social impact. I thank the organizers for inviting me. Though I intended to come in person, but I could not for some personal reasons. But I feel extremely happy to be part of this August gathering, and will be happy to answer questions or participate in the conversation. Thank you very much for patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Professor Majumdar. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, for presenting the Indian case today, because, well, today we mostly spoke about Russian cases. Colleagues, do you have questions for our foreign guest? Everything seemed very clear. Okay, maybe we will come back to you during the discussion time. Thank you very much. Now, let's move to the next presentation. Ekaterina, over to you. Yes, I'll be very brief. Unlike the previous speakers, I don't have any recipes, you know. We are practitioners. We, you know, make all possible errors on that way. If I speak as head of personal potential development programs, I can tell you very well how personal development happens. As a mother of 3 kids, I will be in an impasse because what worked in one case will not work in another case. And all those wise, you know, recommendations, how you actually apply them to practice, that is a big challenge. I can just share some considerations on the topic that is presented today. It's, you know, our experience in social impact, our attempts to assess it. I can tell you that initially, well, in the context of this question, we found ourselves in a difficult situation. First of all, the matter itself, the psychological matter of psychological development, it is kind of provocative. It's difficult to turn it into a very clear model. Secondly, clients and beneficiaries, right? It can be an expert strategical board, it can be one owner. And beneficiaries, you know, they often don't have that request, like, please develop my personal potential. They don't have it. They have their pains. You can work with them. But usually, you know, appetite comes to you when you are eating. At some point, there is a need to develop. You feel it. You understand why you need it. But it's a separate topic as well. So initially, we face several risks. First of all, you know, you should never think about, you know, provoking some direct impact, like, now I'm going to develop yourself. No, when you broadcast it, it's very dangerous. And we try to just say that we can create opportunities for people, and we may not create them. Opportunities and possibilities that will make it possible for a person to kind of flourish, and you can hope for that. But we're not speaking about direct impact, and we're not speaking about measuring it. Secondly, free interpretations of effects that we see and that we measure. You should not go to science here. You know, we are practitioners. We should not forget that we want to be useful here and now. We want to be useful for those who are part of the program. And we don't want to just include these results, you know, somewhere in the report and say how well we worked. We should speak about how it helped those who the report was about. So after the first challenge to launch all of it, for it to really work, we came to a kind of second understanding of that challenge, helping form a culture work with data, managing based on data, some reflection that can provoke changes. I remember the developers of test, Said is called, I think, of Yale University. It measures emotional intelligence. It is a well-validated, known test. And test itself it gives you like the first impulse. I mean, you answer some questions, and then you actually develop your EI, even if you don't do it on purpose afterwards. So the result as an attempt to start thinking about a specific size of activities at school or monitoring my personal processes. For us, this is the focus with which we would like to work to launch development through conscientiousness in the corporate level, speaking about schools or kindergartens or personal level. And the last thesis that I would like to share with you in my brief speech about each point, we actually have open data for each of these items. I would like to thank the host site together with Moscow State Pedagogical University. We are preparing 2 brochures this year following the results of our 7-year studies. One of them is focused on teacher and the fact that we see in a teacher when they work with personal developmental methodologies. And the second one is about the effects in a child as a correlation of data that are related to educational environment, teacher, manager, and we collect lots of data and try to learn to reflect about these subjects ourselves. How do we work with these results of our studies? For me, it seems that one of the most efficient instruments is work in communities. Besides, community is a professional, pedagogical, developing community. I remember a story about Hattie, about meta-analysis of factors that have the strongest impact on the results of a child at school, and last several questionnaires show that collective efficiency, like collective belief that together we do something right, we're strong, we can achieve something, has a serious impact on the one hand on the child and on the other hand on the self-efficiency of teachers and their well-being. And we have small studies. We have our Master's Department of Development of Potential Education. It is a network Master's Department, 11 pedagogical universities take part in it, and these small studies of our master students are also included there. And this story about communities, for me, actually has an additional meaning today. Last year, in the competition Director of the Year, our young director won. We started to duplicate this program in Kaluga in 2018, and one of the first institutional organizations was school number 25. And I remember that at first they said that they really hated this program. It was really hard for
что надо что-то делать, надо как-то меняться.
To ignite us, because we realized that we needed to do something, we needed to change. And now it's a pleasure for me when I come and when I see that the attempt to rethink something at first is met with resistance, but after that we see real change. It is always through resistance. When everything is very smooth, it is superfluous. So he won in this competition, and there was a micro-reflection project when every Monday for 15 minutes at their Teachers' Council, we're trying to understand what they were doing, what's going on, how we understand our feedback, can we speak about errors, is it okay to speak about errors in our culture? And for me, these small steps are really important. If we are able to make our data an impetus for reflection, for conscientiousness, this is also a good process inside. And there is a special scenario. Today we are thinking of another step. We're trying to create courses for the development of research competences in practitioners, when on the one hand, it's possible to use data. You can just conduct a questionnaire. You can make 100 directors get together in one place and ask who is conducting a study. Lots of them are. And after that, ask them who uses the results of these studies in practice. Very few of them. And those who raise their hands, ask them, how do you use them? And the smartest ones
in their strategy will specify, I had these data, that's why I'm moving in that direction. Okay, then this is not what we actually want, but that is also something. That's why for us, I was quite surprised why you did not speak about master's degree in the Higher School of Economics for research competences. I think that this is also about that. It's not only about social impact, but when we were speaking about goals, they are in line. So the goals of educational programs are quite similar in terms of their social effects. Actually, together with Sergei Kosaretsky from High School of Economics, we're developing this course. We are a charity foundation. Everything is free and available, and probably we will make our small contribution in the common goal. Thanks. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Do we have any questions of the speaker? Thank you. So we can invite Could you please switch on my slides? Colleagues, I'd like to introduce myself. Sergei already started speaking about that, and he shared quite a lot. So I'm director of private school, Tatneft School, that is close to Almatyevsk. It is a city in Tatarstan. We know where it is, but probably not everyone knows about that. 200 kilometers from Kazan, and in this city, there is the chief office of Tatneft company. And I would like to speak about our educational projects. I will try to be fast because I know that you are already tired. And on the one hand, it seems that oil production and childhood are really far from each other, but still there is a direct connection between them for us. Advanced technologies and human resource potential for Tatneft, this is the main resource. And in the company, they really want to be confident that tomorrow in production, they will have best people. That's why we start growing best people in kindergartens. This project, Tatneft, is a unified educational process that is built by Tatneft. I will speak about it a bit later, and now would like to develop on what Sergei started speaking about. This project has worked since 2017 for 7 years, actually. It is successful. First of all, it is aimed at development of quality of educational environment in preschool institutions of the southeastern part of the Republic. For 5 years, this project worked in Almatyevsk alone, and 2 years ago, we reached the southeastern region of this Republic, 9 districts of it. It is implemented together with the Laboratory of Development of Research Institute of Urbanistics of Global Moscow Education, State Pedagogical University. Tatiana Ivanova is our assistant. And we say that this is the unique project for the development of preschool education in Russia. Its mission is to contribute to the development of humanistic values in people. The goal and instruments, you can see that formation of educational environment that is focused on comprehensive development of a child and understanding the teachers of your native town and region. The educational environment of kindergartens is brought in compliance with the best world standards. Educational community of teachers is established and actually extended, and we also extend the community of teachers and parents around the goal of sustainable development. Within the 7 years in this project, we have implemented more than 13 programs. These are discoveries, for example, and peers. We established a kindergarten. Well, I don't know. You're saying that this is not a social project, but I don't know. Within this project, Montessori kindergarten was established. Well, it's not about the building. It's not about the building. Well, I understood what you mean. And when we started implementing the practices of productive education and to play, we are proud to say that in the town of Almetievsk, in the structural subdivision of Tatneft company, they started to make these outdoor playgrounds for kids. They're successfully sold in Russia, and you can see part of this construction on the photo. 3 all-Russian pedagogical conferences were conducted. Today, more than 7,000 graduates, preschool children, are able to study the world, to design their first engineering projects, that are able to work as a team. We equipped more than 100 kindergartens of the region with innovative tools and methodological materials. We also launched the processes for re-equipping the walking territories. We also evaluated in educational environments of kindergartens, and in each institution development programs were published. And I think that the most important thing is more than 2,000 teachers, this is the community that we mentioned, improved their professional skills thanks to the teachers that we invited. And this year, uniting all educational projects, because there are kindergartens and corporate education schools and corporate university. And this year, a new project was started that is an educational ecosystem of Tatneft. And now I'd like to show you a video, if it's possible.
Устойчивое будущее создается руками людей,
Stable future is made by people that are in love with their work, that are curious to the world around them, and that are able to find appropriate, creative, non-standard solutions in difficult situations. Such human resources are able to provide for leadership in the development of science and industries. Based on our experience and competences, Tatneft created a unified ecosystem of advanced education and development of a personality that includes consecutive genes. And this approach allows us to bring up human resources and support them on their way to development. We see that the basis of personality are built from birth. That's why educational projects of the company cover children of all ages, starting from the age of 2. More than 100 kindergartens of the Republic have variated multifunctional environment that form conscientious treatment to time, space, and their own opportunities. Children learn to work by themselves and as a team. They create their first engineering and creative projects. More than 2,000 teachers that were trained based on contemporary methodology support children, their development. The information about children's success is stored in digital profile that is created at the initial stage of education and accompanies children after that. At schools, children continue studying the world around them, improve their skills, and open new facets of their talents. They have their first conscientious interest in humanitarians and sciences. This interest is supported by special programs of engineering and biological profile with advanced learning of mathematics, computer science, physics, chemistry, engineering, and sciences. The principle of practical use of knowledge for solving real tasks is applied at this stage. In special biolaboratories, children grow trees using microcloning method. They grow useful bacteria to protect plants, and they learn professions of the future. Contemporary infrastructure allowed to make the knowledge process interest in. That's why we build and maintain schools, equip them, motivate talented students and teachers at all levels of education. Teachers are one of the main participants of our ecosystem that are actively involved in the formation of unified and interrelated methodological base and development of educational programs. We try to form conditions for comprehensive development of personality, and we help children to understand what they want in their profession. Sometimes it's not related to school subjects. That's why we pay special attention to additional education in the research center at Metrica. Children learn laws of physics as a game. Interactive exhibits help them visualize such notions as sound, light, temperature, electricity, energy. Thinking and love of art is learned in arts and musical schools that we also support and equipped together with Red Media Company and the Youth Film Company. The Academy of Digital Creation helps children learn things about computer graphics and animation. Equestrian School helps children learn how to ride horses and develop empathy, responsibility, love of world around them. That is the core profession, human, and that is necessary for future teachers and doctors. Sports infrastructure created with the support of the company helps children learn hockey, martial arts, women, gymnastics, and many other types of sport that help form very important skills for future athletes, ability to achieve results, speed of decision making, and others. But even if a child does not connect their life with professional sports, these qualities are needed for career in any profession, and that's inevitable support their choice and their development pathway. Ability to get a demanded specialty, practical school, and start career with future professional development is given to students of technical schools to prepare high-class workers and employees. Educational programs based on polytechnical and oil technical schools are based, as well as medical college and college of physical culture. This company provide jobs at their enterprises to students for entrepreneurships, and after they receive their diplomas, they can start their work. Tatneft takes part in the federal project Professionalitet, and this is an industrial partner for technical schools. A key element of the next stage of educational ecosystem is High School of Oil. This is a new point attracting young minds, future experts and scientists in the map of Russia. Research Center, High School of Oil unites technological university, research institute, production platform for practical training of oil professions, and Polygon to test initiatives in the sphere of green energy. The synergy of science, education, and business is the basis for efficient chain of real needs of the society and the Russian economy. Production, science, education, and innovations, human resources, creating technologies of the future. A special place in the system is taken by the development of their own advanced engineering school at Metyevsk State Technological University. Is the only university in Russia that develops two of them. The first one was founded together with Etmo University, and it is biotechnologies and computer sciences. It is focused on science with the transfer of technologies to the real sector of business. Following the result of the first year of its work, this school was acknowledged as the best one in the country. The second school is aimed at improving the efficiency of extracting deposits of oil that are difficult to extract. Thus, our country will become more technologically sovereign. Corporate University and Center for Professional Development in companies conduct programs of professional development and professional retraining. They give an opportunity to each employee to develop their skills, to grow their competences, and if they want to, they can even change the profile of their activities, including one of the most advanced areas that the company is developing. An important factor of continuity of the main ideas and values of the company is attracting war veterans and pensioners of oil industry. They are happy to share the accumulated knowledge and take an active part in TETNEFT's projects. And special attention is paid to support and motivation for all aspects of human life. Today, the invited experts and teachers can receive comfortable apartments. Students get rooms in dormitories. There are lots of grant and internship programs of TETNEFT, and they help talented students and teachers reach the goals that were set for them. Educational ecosystem of TETNEFT unites innovative and academic approach to studies and confirm its efficiency by real achievements today. It builds and improves the unified environment for continuous comprehensive development of a human, improving the intellectual and human resource potential of the country.
И всей жизни мы сопровождаем на пути роста и становления.
Step after step, over all lifetime, we accompany you on the way to development. This approach forms a new level of preparing not just personnel, but personalities that will live and work in new conditions and create technologies of the future. Development of human capital in the ecosystem of TETNEFT is continuous. All elements of the chain are closely related to each other. In the interest of state and society, TETNEFT implements its mission. We create together energy of life and new solutions for sustainable future. Yes, favorable changes in society. They are there. Thank you very much. A very interesting film and presentation. I'm not going to ask you about your questions. Maybe, yes, afterwards. We have our final presentation. German Klimenko, Russian Center of Scientific Information. Thank you very much. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I represent the Russian Center of Scientific Information. We are under the government of Russian Federation. It was created based on former Foundation of Fundamental Research. It provides different grants for fundamental and sometimes applied.
В сфере научно-технологического развития Российской Федерации, которые были поддержаны правительством Российской Федерации, президентом Российской Федерации и так далее. Сегодня я бы хотел рассказать, да, действительно, про социальные эффекты от реализации государства.
Today I would like to speak about social effects. I would like to speak about two main areas. We have a social impact from projects, from results, and secondly, we have a social effect in terms of personnel. So it is personnel support, infrastructural projects, and so on. Speaking of results of scientific activities, it's no secret for everyone, it's evident for everyone that modern technologies, they help improve the variety of products and services and to form a very different way of life, which is a social impact in itself. Today, we concentrated mostly on achieving projects to reach sovereignty, technological sovereignty and technological leadership. Maybe you had that this year. Financing will be provided for the next 6 years, financing of mega projects or projects of technological development, as they're called. But don't mix one with the other. Don't mix them up with national projects. We had them until 2024, then until 2030, and so on, to develop technologies. It is worth mentioning that as for scientific results, we have a dilemma. We have fundamental research and applied research. Research to get experimental results. It should be noted that assessment of social impact of results, it should happen in different ways. We try to keep all of that in mind when assessing fundamental research. Projects you know, like, for example, educational center, national centers, and so on. So we are trying to keep in mind, first of all, the nature of the results that we obtained. If it is fundamental research, then, of course, assessment is carried out with scientific expertise. And in this case, apart from relevance and scientific novelty, we also assess what will be used in applied research and so on. We assess a risk level, sustainability, scalability, and so on. If we speak about applied research, then, of course, here we need to assess social impact. It is done as part of assessment of our projects as well. It is more than 5,000 experts of different level in different areas of science. Our experts evaluate results of different centers that are not just to assess the amount of developments, but also effects, impact, and expected impact when implementing this or that result of research. This is what concerns the first part. Now, the second part. We must speak about social impact related to scientists and scholars. Impact from the activities. Young scientists are now supported a lot. I guess you've heard that some time ago there was a new initiative from the president to give 2,000 grants, like increased grants sums to the best postgraduate students. This program has started already in Ministry of Education, and 2,000 postgraduate students will be selected, those who are involved in regular scientific activities. So it's worth noting that as for state policy in that respect, the results that are obtained as part of state orders, they are very important. Results obtained by young scientists, among other things. I would like to now refer to February Decree number 107 by the Ministry of Education. Expert forms of expert conclusions were corrected there that are done when state tasks are assessed. They try to take account of some elements of implementation of results. Practical importance plays a role, and we want to actually add that criteria and social impact of implementation. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the presenter? Yes. Has he already obtained the grant? Well, I would say that there are questions to measuring social impact from technological process in science. That's interesting how to measure it, actually. But I guess we'll discuss it afterwards. We'll discuss it later. Colleagues, thank you very much. We are finishing our roundtable now. We'll have a break for lunch. Then symposium will continue. And I would like to ask speakers, can we actually upload your presentations? And I want to seize this opportunity to invite speakers. We're going to continue our research. Please take part in it as experts, as invited guests, and keep in touch. Let's keep in touch. Thank you very much. Colleagues, let me invite you to a publication. Actually, we will publish some works. After this symposium, we will collect articles. We will provide you with deadline and requirements to your publications. We'll be very happy to receive them from you. Thank you very much.